Alright, today we are testing out 3 different kinds of fire starters. First we have the Baylite. This is my personal favorite. This is the one I carry in the woods with me every single time. Then we have the little Flint and Magnesium pocket fire starter. And then we have the Strike Force. This one is supposedly watertight, which doesn't matter to me too much because all these are supposed to work even when wet, but it does have a little compartment here. You can put some dryer lint in for fire tinder, so that is cool. We're going to throw some sparks at some dryer lint today and see which one does the best. So again, all these do claim to work even when wet, so that's what we're going to be trying. We're starting off with the Baylite. I'm going to dip it in water. And now it's time to throw some sparks. We're using the Ontario, the Trench Rat today. And there we go. Just like that, we have fire even when it is soaking wet. Alright, now we're going to be using the little Magnesium and Flint combo, the little pocket fire starter. Again, we're going to dip it in water, get it nice and wet. To keep things fair, I'm going to be using the same Ontario knife for all the strikes, and let's see. Okay, it does work a few more strikes, but it did get a fire started even when wet. And lastly, we're going to be using the Strike Force. So again, gonna dip it in some water, get the Strike Force nice and wet, and the Trench Rat. And there it goes. Again, took a few more strikes, but it's just soaking wet, so that might have had something to do with it as well. Now here's something else I want to show. Here's a brand new Bic lighter. Lights right up, plenty of fuel, brand new. Now when I drop this lighter in the water, okay, so even if you keep your lighters in a Ziploc bag or something, once this lighter has gotten wet and you pull it out, it's just not gonna light anymore. It has a different sound to it almost. It's trashed, okay? So it's super important to bring an alternative source of fire. So I know it's a lot more difficult to light your camp stoves with these rods that you strike, and it's not as convenient, and they do weigh a little bit more, but that's all it takes, and you have no more fire, no more cooking, no more no anything, okay? If you're relying on fire to purify water, you just lost that too. So super important. Pack one of these rods, whichever one it may be, just as a backup, because these are trash. Now let's do some quick weigh-ins. All right, the Strike Force comes in at 3.2 ounces. The Pocket Flint and Magnesium comes in at 1.7 ounces, and you could take the striker off to save a little bit of weight. That's not necessary. Hopefully you'll have a knife. And then the Baylite comes in at 3.8 ounces. Right, your Bic lighter is obviously going to be the lightest at 0.3 ounces. So they are significantly heavier, but you also have so much more security in starting a fire. If you look, this Baylite rod is extremely thick. So you're talking a lot of different fires you can start with this rod. And then when you come over to the little Pocket Flint, this rod is not quite as thick. It's a little bit thinner, so this may only give you 15, 20 fires at most. And it doesn't weigh much less than the Baylite. We're at 1.7, and the Baylite was at 3.8. So the Baylite weighs about as much as 2 of those. Still not too bad. And then the Strike Force, it was kind of in the middle at 3.2. And opening it up, the rod is a little bit thicker. However, though, it's a lot shorter, and it didn't throw sparks quite as well as that Baylite. So Baylite would be my recommendation. That's my favorite. I've abused this rod. I've used it a pretty good bit. You can see here where my knife cut into it. I had a two-sided knife, and that was my only choice to use the blade side at a bad time. But other than that, smooth strikes, and I always pull the rod away instead of throwing the knife towards the tender. When you throw the knife towards the tender, your tender tends to fly away, and it's sloppy. So pull the rod away from the knife, directed towards your fire, and no matter what happens to those rods, they'll start a fire just about every time.